You sold your residence in New York right before the collapse in housing, and you moved to Singapore and stated you were bullish on China. But you're not bullish on all of Asia. And if I have this correct, you think India will break up in 30 or 40 years. Would you mind commenting on the future of India as you see it?
Well, India's a spectacular country to visit. I will tell you, if you can only visit one country in your lifetime, it should be India. There's no country like it at all in all aspects, and it's just an astonishing place to visit or to be. However, there are many ethnic groups, religious groups, linguistic groups. It's just it's a mishmash of people, which the British pushed together in 1947 and said, now you're a country. Well, it's never been a country, not in the present borders anyway. There are many people within India who don't like other people within India for many reasons. I don't suspect it's going to last. Historically, it has never survived as in this kind of format. I mean, most countries change over the centuries. India always has, and I suspect it will too. They don't seem to get things right. Now, if you can find some smart Indian entrepreneurs, you'll make a fortune. And my goodness, there are millions of them. India is a country of 1 billion people, so there are plenty of very smart and successful Indians. If you can find one of them, get involved. But if you do business in India, you're going to have the wind at your face, not at your back.
I was interviewing Peter Schiff today, and he expects the U.S. dollar to collapse. Are you in that camp, Jim? And what would be your time frame for a collapse if you are? I
certainly expect down the road that the U.S. dollar is going to go the way that pound sterling and every other world's reserve currency has gone. It's a terribly flawed currency. The pound sterling from top to bottom went down maybe 90%, if one can go back 100 years ago, say. And I suspect that will happen with the U.S. dollar. Whether it happens anytime soon or not, I don't know. But it's already down substantially in the past few decades. It's going to go down a whole lot more because, unfortunately, America is now the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, which is bad enough. But the debts keep rising; they don't decline. And unfortunately, I'm afraid that I don't see anything on the horizon that's going to change that. Most countries that get into this kind of situation rarely even address their problems until there's a crisis or a semi-crisis. And I suspect that history will prove that that's what happens in America, too. I'd hope that the crisis or semi-crisis doesn't come anytime soon. But we're certainly not addressing our problems, not in the correct manner.
When I was interviewing Dr. Mark Faber and asking him about Bernanke, he stated that Bernanke is, quote, a madman and a destroyer of wealth and an economic criminal. Some may say those are harsh words, Jim, but are they true?
Well, I would have to think that Mr. Bernanke doesn't know what he's doing. There's little question about that. It's just mind-boggling. Here's a man, if I came on your program, Eric, and I was wrong every time I came on your program, week after week after week, after a while, you wouldn't have much to do with me. But Mr. Bernanke has been wrong for week after week for, 300 weeks or something. It's astonishing how he's been down in Washington, and he's never, ever gotten it right. You go back and look at his pronouncement under oath, so we presume he wasn't lying. So the world would have to think the man doesn't have a brain in his head. I mean, I'm sure he's a very nice Ivy League academic, which may be part of the problem. But, man, it's just never, ever been right. Ever. I cannot think of a single time he's been right about anything. And so, unfortunately, we have now given him the keys to the printing presses. He's a man who doesn't understand markets. He doesn't understand currency. He doesn't understand economics. He doesn't understand much of anything except printing money, which that's all he studied for his entire academic career. And now he's running the printing presses. We're all in serious trouble because he doesn't know what he's doing.
Dr. Mark Faber also commented about that Hitler wrote Mein Kampf and basically talked about the fact that these are the plans and these are the things that he had planned. And he kind of related that to Bernanke and said that he, wrote about how he would drop money from helicopters and create this inflation. But he also described both he and Geithner as dangerous. And I asked Jim Grant about that and to comment on that. And he agreed they were dangerous, but because of the ideas that they embrace, are they both collectively, are they just dangerous?
No. Well, Geithner's just as bad as Bernanke. Geithner's been doing all this for 15 years. So what is that? He's been wrong for 750 weeks in a row. That poor guy has never gotten anything right. And it's the reason he's the Secretary of the Treasury, because, when Obama, who doesn't know much about all this, went around asking people, they all said Geithner, but they said Geithner because Geithner always gives them what they want, you know. Geithner's been sitting down there, was the head of the New York Fed, and when things went wrong, everybody would call him up, and he would just dish out anything they wanted. And they knew he was a pliable, gullible guy who would do what the financial community wanted. So that's how he got the job. Does he know what he's doing? Absolutely not. As I say, he's been wrong 750 weeks in a row. Mr. Bernanke's only been wrong 300 weeks in a row.
The first 10 years when you founded the Quantum Fund, and in closing here, the S&P advanced 47%, but the Quantum Fund gained 4,200%. Where will gains like that be possible in the future, Jim?
Well, we're going to have lots of currency turmoil in the next decade. So I would suspect that people who know about currencies will do fine, and people who don't will lose a lot of money. Commodities, obviously, will do well because the supply-demand equation for commodities is very positive for those who own commodities. And, of course, when you have currency turmoil, real assets has always been a good place to be. So I would suspect if I were trying to figure out how to make money in the next decade, it would be in currencies and commodities. I would probably be the best place. And or learn how to sell short. If you learn how to sell short, there are going to be great opportunities in things like government bonds. Well, and some currencies will be great short sale candidates. There'll be plenty of ways to make money if one keeps one's wits about it.
Last question for you on the Rogers Raw Material Fund. You know, a lot of people would try to get into futures over the year, and these are people who make money, the doctors or lawyers, but they don't know what they're doing, and they would go into these futures accounts and inevitably blow up, as you know. Is that why you one of the reasons, let me say that, is that one of the reasons why you created the Rogers Raw Material Fund? Not just because you knew commodities were going to be a big deal, but because people could go in there and invest safely in a broad basket of these commodities?
Well, yes, but it was partly because I thought the bear market was coming to an end, and I wanted a way for me to invest in commodities. It was pretty simple without